about a specific concept in figure drawing that relates to animation, which is how to exaggerate a figure drawing. Animation relies very heavily on stylization and how to exaggerate a character. Now there's right ways to go about this and there's wrong ways to go about this, or more accurately, there's right ways to go about this and there are ways that will in the long run turn out to be to your detriment. So I want to talk a little bit about how to go about exaggerating a figure pose today. And note that I will be using a photo in this in this assignment. I do strongly recommend that if you have a live model to draw, maybe grabbing a frame and just sitting outside in the park and drawing, that's perfectly fine, and it's also free to do. You'll find far more use out of something like that usually than just using a photo. However, I'm using a photo today because I want to explain how to exaggerate specifically anatomy in a good way, in a appealing way for animation, and just run you guys through how to do that. If you're interested in how to do live drawing and you don't have money or you don't have a class nearby for nude models, I definitely recommend taking a look at the Croquis Cafe on Vimeo. They have online videos, and this is quite useful, especially now during our pandemic quarantine. So let's get started. And what I mean by exaggeration in a character is, one thing we as animators do not want to do is just copy this pose, right? We don't want to go for something overly realistic when we're animating. It's a little boring. And I also don't know a lot of animated features that rely so heavily on more realistic proportions. So drawing a character with realistic proportions, the way I'm doing right now, it's really, it makes the character stiff, it makes the character a little boring, and it's not really what we aim towards in character design anyway. So what we're going to do is I want to focus a little bit on how to push your solid drawing and how to exaggerate what you see in a model. And the quickest and easiest way to do this is to revisit that idea of the steak knife principle, where I've got one simple curve and a set of complex curves on the other side, much like a steak knife. And what we essentially want to do is look at the human body and exaggerate those curves. Now, I'm very fortunate here that the model in question actually has some very good curves. For example, if you take a look at her arm, you can really push these areas into a very appealing, exaggerated shape in your live drawing. But just focusing on the human body as it is, if I just trace over this like this, you'll see that, you know, it immediately becomes a little stiff if I want to draw you know, an exact copy. So the two things we want to look at is the line of action. Number one, your line of action, and number two, your steak knife. So the line of action, generally speaking, is the curve that is made by the spine. It shows the intentions of your character, and what usually the quickest best step to exaggerate a character is you need to understand the anatomy of the character, the solid form of the character, and then how to exaggerate the line of action. Now this woman is arching her back quite heavily here, so in our drawing, once we've placed the position of the head, I want to take this line of action, and where it's a curve like this here, I actually want to push that curve even further and maybe make it two curves instead of just one. And then from there, it is a matter of deciding where I want to add the outside edges. And by rule of thumb, what we will do is, again, we'll have a simple curve on one side and a set of complex curves on the other. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to exaggerate that curve over there and make the curve here a little bit more complex, like so. And much the same can be said. You'll notice that I drew a circle here. This circle is not necessarily literally the head, but more the general place where you can expect the head to be. And I find that to be more useful than literally drawing the head and then trying to mix and match and fit the body in. So with that exaggeration now in place, we can start pushing the character a bit more. The most important place to exaggerate, in my opinion, is always the trunk of the body. Once you've done that, the exaggeration that you want to do in other places becomes a lot easier. So I'll worry about the hips in a moment. The first thing I usually do after knowing where the body is to draw the hands first. So we're going to draw a little silhouette for the hand over here, and we're going to draw a silhouette for the hand over here. And then essentially what we're going to do is just make the arms fit into that position. Now, I mentioned earlier, we've got a very nice exaggerated steak knife already happening in her body over here, and that's exactly what I want to try and push here, is rounding out that shoulder. I really like this shape that I'm seeing here, so I'm going to take that shape and I'm going to exaggerate it and then push that arm out. And then once that's done, we can exaggerate that arm a little bit more. Over here we've got the arm going up, and we've got a very, very beautiful curve over here, which I think we can push even further in terms of our animation here, and do the same thing, straight and straight. Now with this done, now we can start worrying about where we want to do the head and the neck. And generally speaking, I personally find that knowing the position of the neck and the trapezoids, these muscles over here, are actually more important than knowing where the head is. So I'm going to focus on just drawing an elegant neck over there, and then we can worry about the head will generally be over here. Now this is a figure drawing. I'm not too worried about being precise. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake. It's not the end of the world. I'll just you know, keep on drawing and make a better drawing next time. So we're going to push using this flat curve here as a simplified curve over there. Now we can start adding the curves for the breasts, which flow more or less in this direction here, like so, and start adding some anatomy, you know, the musculature where it needs to be, and we can push the rib cage shape there a little bit more and push further there. I would recommend you do this more than once, right? Like if you have one drawing like this, rather draw that drawing, I would say 10 times. Draw 10 versions of the same drawing, spending no more than 1 minute per gesture drawing. 1 minute per gesture drawing. The reason for this is then you spend 10 minutes really learning which curves work, which ones don't, what are the proportions come across as successful, which angles and rotations in the body work for you, instead of just trying to hit the perfect note the first time. That's a very unrealistic expectation, to draw the perfect drawing, you know, like once and done. I don't really think that works very well.